All right. Quick, I guess, intro for tonight. This is arguably the worst time to be playing a league because there is ongoing prelim. So potential chance we'll run into a lot of nonsense tonight. That being said, I don't think I until they change the prelim structure, unless I really need the practice, it's very little incentive for me to play in it. Not to mention I don't like the downtime in between rounds, and I don't need the qualifier points because I don't, at the moment at least I'm not playing multiple formats. I don't really have it in my bandwidth to do so. I do enjoy modern when I play it. It's been a while though. Um, the few times I played vintage, not too big on it. It's a little too broken, I guess, for me. Uh, I think the only time I've ever played standard really was when I played the PT last year, the online PT I guess. Um, Played what is it? Cat Oven, right? So, which is funny because it's kind of like Wirewood and Visionary, right? Beats most mid-range decks just because they just can't deal with it, right? Same thing with Wirewood and Visionary. Um, I think that was actually 2020, but nevertheless, yeah, probably not the best time to be playing League, but we'll see how it goes. I think with the for tonight's testing, the main deck I've been really happy with. I had tinkered around with it, in the weeks leading up to the PTQ on last Saturday, but I actually went back to it's like pretty much the same of what we played at Eternal Weekend. I think the only difference is we went down to 3 Allosaur Shepherd because I really wanted to play the fourth Once Upon a Time, which I think might be the most underplayed green card, at least in Legacy. I think some other underplayed cards. I think Esper Sentinel is potentially underplayed. I'm trying to think what else off the top of my head. Yeah, I guess those two come to mind as like pretty underplayed cards at the moment. Possible that Black as a like Dark Confidant is underplayed too at the moment. It is like Dread Horde before Dread Horde, right? But with regards to today, main deck's pretty much the same. Sideboard, I wanted to test a few cards. I lost a 5-0 last night to lands, and I think this card, Excavator, has a chance to, if not flip the matchup, make it very competitive. Because I found the matchup against I played against in my opinion, a pretty good pilot on the lands matchup, and it was pretty close. I won game one, lost games two and three, but I think game three in particular, was pretty winnable if I had drawn a little bit better. Um, you kind of need Cradle to win, I think, in that matchup. I mean, it's possible you win without it, but I think most wins involve a Cradle, and I think not Reclaimer, Excavator buying back a Cradle is pretty big, especially against a lone lock, so to speak. Um, Card rotation gives you the fifth Cradle while giving access to another Caracas against Merit Lage out of green white depths. So I kind of like that. And then the Miser Mind Trap. In general, I don't really like this card. Um, Possible we just want one ley line just to tilt people, but I think one thing I will do is I will play ley line in leagues every once in a while to keep the Ruby Storms and the Test of the World honest. Like to, they may ignore it anyways. But yeah, it's just to keep them honest that I potentially could have a Mindbreak Trap. That said, everything else is like pretty stock to be honest. I do not think at this moment we can cut glimpse, and I think Inigo came to the same conclusion. So with that said, we can go ahead and start. Oh man, I immediately regret cutting the ley lines already. We're running into a known oops player, so probably gonna lose this one. But it's fine. This is what I get, right? Like I test cards and then I run into this. Um, in leagues. I kind of wish that they're like competitive leagues again because just this is like not really fun for me. Like you don't really even in the wins you don't really learn anything, right? Or I mean, obviously you learn more in losses, but I don't even think I learned anything in losses against this deck. They also know what we're on, so just game one is pretty much impossible. And I think we're probably just gonna without Leyline, this matchup is gonna be. I do play a lot of leagues for whatever it's worth for Mario, and I remember too because especially I lose to certain decks that tilt me, and Oops is one of them, and I have lost to this opponent. But yeah, that's good and bad at the same time, Romario. The fact that I know what my opponent's on, it's kind of like I probably should play less leagues. Yeah, I don't think we want the glimpses. This matchup is just in general horrendous. Well, I take that back. It's fine if you have Leyline, but we don't. And we get immediately punished by this. I don't expect to win this matchup without Leyline. This is the one matchup actually that you kind of need Leyline because they mold to Leyline Sanctity. I think we have to keep. Potentially they don't now because people have seen that I'm running upwards of three Leyline, so that gives me some insulation, I guess. All right, so they kept the foundation breaker off the fact that I could have Leyline. um, one, two, three, four. So they have the combo if they want to go for it. Um, yeah, that's a good point, Sadra. I agree. I just don't care like about leagues too much. I just want to what is the word I'm looking for? I want to like get real practice, right? Like I've noticed I can concede some percentage points during leagues because I get better practice if I do so. Like for instance, uh, hold on, let me finish this train of thought. If we untap, we okay. Now we're dead. We really did. Didn't work out this time. Thank you for the follow. I didn't pay attention. Thank you for the follow, Ethan. So yeah, maybe wasting my time here playing with elite when a prelim's going on. This is what I get, right? I pick a time like this to test non ley line sideboard. Maybe I should just suck it up and play the prelims, even though they're bad value, because I do think I would still do pretty well, and then probably still wouldn't lose money, but you get the better practice, right? Instead of running into to oops, which is less like you don't learn anything. I do think we can beat Reanimator without Leyline. It's just the is oops is the real issue. I am. I was actually a little nervous about yesterday's game, Romario. I do know that the Rams had I'll keep this. It's like generically good. I do know the Rams were lined up traditionally well against the Cardinals in the McVay era, but uh, given how especially Matthew Stafford had been slumping lately, I was a little bit nervous, but I did not expect the Cardinals to just implode the way that they did. That was probably one of the worst games I've seen in a long time from Kyler Murray. Yeah, exactly. Like the decision to just throw it up like that instead of throwing it away early, that led to the pick six was pretty much the game right there, right? I think we keep the Heritage Druid. I'm a little nervous. I needed to hit a land drop there. So if we get wasted, it's pretty bad. Yeah, I think the only two games that were worth watching were. All right, shit, that's really bad for us. Yeah, what Romario's referencing is the Bengals Raiders game was good, and what am I forgetting here? Oh, the Cowboys choking to the Niners. Yeah, I felt like the Niners just kind of stopped playing, right? Like they were pretty much dominating. I think we been the Huff here. Yeah, there's a reason why Aaron Rodgers wanted McCarthy out for a while. Oh my God, we are. I think Jimmy's fine. It's just like he can't stay healthy is one of the issues with Jimmy, right? Like when he's played, he's typically been okay. I know one year I regretted dropping in my fantasy football league, and then he blew up after that. Might have been the year that the Niners went to the Super Bowl. I don't remember. All right, we finally got mana after some terrible draws. We're playing against what looks like a pile to me. That's true, yeah. Part of it was under the Kaepernick era, though. Speaking of which, there are rumors for you sports fan out there. Maybe Harbaugh comes back to the NFL. Probably losing this game, but we'll see. We just like drew really poorly. Hmm. Well, we have the endurance, I guess, but yeah, this punishing fire is gonna be annoying. Hmm. Oh my God, they have a force too. Jesus. All right. I found blue splashing colors is not free in elves. Ethan, unfortunately. Oh really, Romar? That's pretty funny. I don't even think this list is like good. It's just we got mana screwed, right? So I think we don't have brainstorm, but we do have ancestral recall. Arguably better, right? Although Probably not beating the Punishing Fire now. Unfortunately. So Romario, in the match you watched our opponent play, what was the Brogan playing against? And I'm curious who won. I feel like it's weird right now. I think Legacy. I see it for yeah. That's fair. It is sunny because of the you know who got 4C control or this pile. Oh man, not working out for us. Yeah, I don't know like some of these control decks. I guess if you want to call them that, with like eight or actually probably even more. Right? They have swords, punishing fire, and ending. I just don't know how you beat combo, or maybe you just accept you lose to it. Yeah, I don't know how these control decks ever beat combo. It makes sense, right? Because I hear these stories about these control decks just like losing to every possible combo deck that's not like weak to removal. Possible Romario. It's just a lot of cards are bored out, right? Like you have. I mean, look at this build. Presumably four swords, maybe one or two endings. Like given that they have like maybe two to three punishing fire, that's what like 10 removal spells. I mean, Sager gets it. Our boy Jonathan Zhang would be very proud right now. He was grinning from ear to ear when I told him that Delver in the PTQ was a whopping 23% of the metagame, but was only 45% win rate. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think black definitely helps because of discard. But this is, I mean, keep in mind, this is a lot of removal. What were you gonna say, Romario? I mean, like, obviously, any deck could have a bad performance or so. It has been like at least a few weeks now that Delver's kind of been not that impressive. I think. I mean, there you go, right? Um, I think here we're gonna. Oh man, they have a loam lock too. We probably just. Man, this is tough. I think we pass, to be honest. I think Romario's talking about Delver, but I could be wrong. Yeah, Check Pao is pretty much like big brother to the Grixis Delver decks during Deathray Shaman era. After counter Sensei Divines haven't been banned. So we're down a game here. I think it was no Delver Sager. So Delver was a small version. Check Pao was the big version. So it ran like Snapcasters instead. It was a more. It was pretty much the big brother or the mid-range version of. Yeah, exactly. Romario said it right. Like you have Snapcasters and K commands. I do miss myself a good K command. I think Grixis. I do miss control black control decks in the format, which sometimes I'll see pop up, but kind of rare at the moment. But I think things are slowly changing though because depending who you ask, the best deck right now might be a control deck. I think either Jeskai or Hull Breacher, or Jeskai being the more popular version, and then the Honorog Special 4C Greed being the other. When I say Greed, obviously it's the four. The reason why I say it's Greed is because it's a 4-color control deck playing Wasteland as well. I think we have no choice but to try to go off now. Yeah, I think so too, Romano, personally. I definitely like myself a good control deck, for whatever that's worth. In terms of black-based control. Full disclosure, I also enjoy that playstyle more because I'm secretly a black mage in the sense that I love hand disruption. For those of you who watch my streams will know this, I am big Thoughtseize stand. Yeah, unfortunately, that second black is not easy, right? All right, we're too far behind. I'm not gonna see it. Save everybody some time. Hey, Dukes. I'm doing well. We just got ranched in our first match against Oops, as punishment for cutting Leyline Void, right? For testing purposes. It's partially my fault. This is what I get for playing at a time when the prelims going on. So all the decks that can't be Delver, I'm running into them. So we lost to Oops round one, and then we got Mana Scoop. We essentially missed on land off the Once Upon a Time, and they wastelanded our single Bayou. I do think we're probably favored in this matchup. But yeah, we did drop a game for whatever that's worth. Let's see how we want to board. So probably want to cut the Heritage Druids. We're gonna expect some, but we didn't see black. I don't think. Um, we saw. I think this is the matchup where we wanted mid-range actually our opponent out with the endurances. Then we could cut that. I think the Caracas is pretty good against Uro in a pinch. They could have. Actually, I don't think we need Caracas here. Probably Excavator is pretty good, right? To deal with their mana denial. The Naga last. Oh, you're talking about Excavator. Yeah. So it's I lost the 5-0 match last night to Lands, and it was quite close game three. And I think there was a couple of scenarios where like I wished I had access to this in the deck, and I could just like sack all my dudes to Green Sun for it. So I am trying it again. As it's funny because I rarely run into the Lands matchup, and then when I take it out because I stopped running into it in leagues, I get caught with my pants down, right? Like I don't have it to test, and I think it potentially, I don't know if it swings the matchup, but it probably doesn't flip the matchup, but probably helps a lot. Yeah, so Runkor Inigo is in Europe, so he's asleep at the moment. I think we keep this. It's pretty solid. And so yeah, we elect to turn into this mid range deck against them here that can play around Wasteland. There's no black, so we're not afraid of Engineer either. Otherwise, in general, I like to bring in black. Sorry, discard against black decks to discard the Engineer or whatever sweeper they may have. Um, but yeah, they are on 4C non-black, I guess. I I do wish there was an easy way for us to punish these greedy mana bases, and maybe it's I have to play the Wasteland what is it called Excavator combo again, but not. I don't know if it's worth it at the moment because I think we beat them anyways. Oh, also, for anybody who likes my content, here again are the relevant links. Uh, Discord, Twitter, and YouTube. How much will Legacy explode change if they printed untapped snow duels? Uh, Interesting hypothetical question, Sadra. I actually don't know. I suspect it. Thank you for the follow, Shugu Gengyu. I suspect Legacy would be much more popular. How much it would change the metagame, I'm not so sure, to be honest. I don't know the answer to that. Probably pretty high initially. I don't know what the print run and things like that would be, but I would imagine pretty high. I think here we fire off a glimpse, right? They gotta force, in my opinion. I mean, if it's a spell pierce, so be it. Or Fluster Storm. Here we don't play the Cradle because we want it to actually resolve. Because they could just Swords our Arbor to cut us off mana in response. A little bit awkward here though. We drew 2 lands. I think we just pass. Yeah, that's true. They would not have to run steam vents anymore. That is true. But pretty awkward for sure. Us drawing. Well, I guess we drew the 1 land. Yeah, part of me wanted them to really force the glimpse, but it's okay. Like I definitely want to cast the Reclaimer that turn. All right, our first mistake from our opponent. This feels so good. I was actually setting it up too and hoping they would walk into it. A lot of people do. All right, there you go. Shame concede, right? It's nice when you set up these traps and they pay off. The old shame concede. I usually don't expect it to work, but every once in a while it does. And it's kind of free, right? Because I wasn't going to cast anything anyways. I wouldn't do that to my own detriment, obviously, just for style points, but it did work out there. Thank you. I appreciate that, the tonic boo. Um, hmm. I hate this card so much sometimes. I mean, they never expect it, right? Because most of the other Reclaimer decks, it's not a consistent 3-4 the way we are. I guess Green White Depths is pretty consistent, but like out of post is not. Out of lands, like sometimes, I guess. I think we mull this. Like, this is too bad, I think. Alright, this is better. That's better. Not to mention, like, it being in our deck from a strategic standpoint is pretty relevant. Like, we want to be able to natural order off limited resources, and just losing that angle of attack is pretty relevant. Of course, that means I'm going to draw it later on, right? Because every time I do that, that happens. But I think my favorite is, Delver players or Lightning Bolt players trying to bolt Reclaimer and then they just don't see the onboard trade. Or better, we have the crop rotation, right? I think here. I think it feels better than that, to be honest, Sage. Because at least the other one is a tempo loss. Like, this is just straight up value for that, because I was gonna do that regardless. I think here there's a couple of options. I think if we lead with the, I kind of want to just lead with the Shepherd and then just like run out some stuff. Hard to say though. Whenever I guess. I'm down to do that whenever. I think we just do this, force them to answer it. Like, more mana the better in general. And we do have the Visionary, so there's that. Did you have a deck list in mind, Ethan? Probably eats a removal spell. Ooh. Okay, I know that was an inside joke there, referring to the good old blue spell ash that I think is quite ineffective against in elves. We are a deck that wants to tap out, so to speak, and what's the word I'm looking for? Having to hold up mana is just because we're a deck with exponential growth. I find that quite inefficient. Dom's vintage list. So he ran Frilled Mystic in vintage. I find that hard to believe, but if you're saying it's true, then I'll take your word for it. Sure, that's fine. Oh, okay, sure, okay. I see. If they Swords the Visionary, I think we're happy, right? I mean, I enjoy both. I mean, I don't know too much about Vintage, honestly. I played it a few times, but not on Moto. Um, but I do know they're like pretty big on Vintage, and I do enjoy both of their analyses, right? Dom and what is the word? Dom and Justin. So we just kind of played everything out. There's a good chance that they have that they have the punishing fire plus the force, but I think we go for it regardless. We do have a pretty fast clock though at the moment, and we can deal with punishing fire now. It's possible that we save the Allosaurus Shepherd. Um, it's possible that we save the Allosaurus Shepherds so that we make them spend mana inefficiently the next turn. But they could have just held up mana regardless, right? But that punishes them because of the yeah. I think it's okay what we did. Do they have it? They don't. They never have it, I guess, right? Like a lot of times with this deck, the way I play is I'm pretty confident in my deck. Like, show me that you have it. Like, and more often than not, it works because even when they do, you often, if you play tight, right, you can beat it still. I'm not gonna play scared. Like, show me that you have it. So this league going so far as expected. I expected to lose to Faulted Form, given they were on Oops and we did not have the ley lines. Possible we lose regardless, but hard to say, right? Like they did have a hand with Foundation Breaker, so maybe we would have lost regardless. This matchup is pretty interesting to test, I think, because they are on the Hull Breacher combo, but the ban version. I've run into them a few times in leagues. I honestly, like I said during my previous stream, I didn't take this combo seriously. I thought it was more of a meme than anything else. But people are playing it now, so something to expect. I think we keep it off the back of Natural Order and Shepherd. Not great though. Like we're on a Moto 6 virtually, but What do you think the best deck is at the moment? I mean, Sager, that's a loaded question, no? Obviously, I'm gonna say our deck. But, you know, if I cannot choose elves, I mean, just to humor everybody, I think the best deck at the moment is potentially. Okay, let me think. Okay, let me think about that for a second. I'm gonna attack and see what they do. I don't. I'm gonna call their bluff. I don't think they have Ice Fang. Uh, Good question. I think the best. I know the best. The deck with the best win rate, for instance, is Green White Depths. From what I saw, I do think they have an issue with combo though, and combo tends to be overrepresented, especially in leagues. But so I'm not ducking anybody's question. I think the best deck is probably one of the control decks at the moment. Um, Either the Anurag special, the 4C Greed, or the Jeskai Hullbreacher. Because they have seemed to figure out the Delver matchup from what I can tell. Alright, a couple of things we can do here. I think we can do that. And I think to play around a where is it? Oh, here it is. Actually, undo. All right, they just conceded. Pretty nice, right? We had actually had the hoof in hand, and they didn't. They just conceded before we were just gonna Archon them. So I'll take it. Yes, the syndicate is greater than the cartel at the moment, but keep in mind the control decks are part of the cartel, right? Although, you know, a less sinister version of it, because I think they're more on the fair side in terms of like the gameplay that goes on. Obviously, it sucks when they bury you in a Earl card advantage, right? But for the most part, I think people find the current iterations of control less annoying to play against than the some of the other gameplay that we've seen from Delver, especially in the past, right, with like Dreadhorde and whatnot. I think given what we saw, I think they are on the combo, so I'm gonna go ahead and board and seize. Uh, Take out the endurance, take out the collector oof. Did we even see green? Maybe we didn't. I don't remember. We could probably take out the heritage. I don't even think we want the Brahmin up here. Like this matchup is not really about that. I think this is probably fine. I do think the green decks are very good at the moment though. Our deck, I do think lands is actually very good if they can dodge combo, obviously. Um, I also think this is like rarely keepable. Slow, very slow. And I think green white depth is actually a very good deck. But to be fair, also the merit lage decks tend to have pretty decent pilots. That is worth something. There are certain archetypes, and I don't want to throw any archetype under the bus. Um, Cough Cough Reanimator, uh, that has some suboptimal play. I'll leave it at that. There are some other archetypes that have a reputation for some very shaky or draws in the attraction of a newer player. Um, Without saying what they are, a hint is it has to do with the fact that these decks don't have any cards on the reserve list. This feels like Hull Breacher to me, but maybe we just get got here. Pretty sure we're gonna get got right now. Yep. It's really nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. Probably gonna get comboed here, but we're gonna do this in response. Yep. All right. That is brutal. We're probably just dead here. We did keep kind of a shaky hand, and we're getting it punished. I think given that we know our opponent is on the combo, perhaps the lesson learned is to not keep a hand when we know that our opponent is not just a straight Dirtle deck. Yeah, perhaps against like the Honorog versions, we can keep that hand, but less so against these combo builds that are. I'd be curious if anybody who plays this deck. How is their matchup against Delver? I feel like anytime your deck is running these gimmicky combos, you probably aren't as favored against Delver, but that is only pure speculation, right? Sure. Also, an important thing is to not underestimate your opponent. And what I mean by that is not so much the think that they're a bad player or anything. More so like I did lose one match in round four of the PTQ because I just did not expect my opponent to have the combo. Like it just never crossed my mind that that was a real thing. And the real lesson learned was um, just because something is not popular or you don't think it should be popular doesn't mean people won't do it. Yeah, so I think what we're starting to see now is I think Delver is having a hard time targeting a deck because the metagame, in my opinion, right now is pretty diverse. If you look at the top eight of the PTQ, uh, you'll see that I think there are seven different decks. I could be wrong. I have to look again. But I think, yeah, there were seven different decks, and then none of which were Delver, right? There wasn't a single Delver pilot in the top eight. All right, we're dead. I don't think I want to waste people's time, so I'm gonna concede. It means we can get more games in, right? Or end earlier, I guess. I'm not gonna try to squeeze out for the. We're probably just dead there. I mean, even end the festivities. If you watch my Eternal Weekend breakdown, I beat it multiple times. Like, obviously, if you're on the draw, it's a lot harder. But on the play, I think it's definitely reasonable to beat. I think given the way this game played out, probably okay with this. One thing I did kind of want to try again, especially if control decks are coming back, like Hull Breacher versions, is a Cabal Pit. I'm not sure how it lines up personally because the threshold might not be easy to get, but it could be a life or game saver though. So I didn't run it here because I just wanted to throw in the Mindbreak Trap, but potentially, potentially we should play it. I think one thing I realized too is against these Hull Breacher decks, maybe we have to show them black because they're less tentative. They'd be less likely inclined to go for the combo, especially if we don't have the Thoughtseize. So I'm gonna lead with this hand here is a lot better than our previous hand to start. I think you need pit active on T4. Yeah, that would be my concern, Jason. That it's not active on quick enough, especially since a lot of the removal is white base, right? Um, a question I got asked from Inigo a while back was, and this is when I cut, or I forget if I would have. I think I had the Cabal pick because Blue Zenith was becoming popular. Dark Blast is -1, so we're actually happy with that. What was I gonna say? Oh, so Inigo had asked me um, about Cabal Pit against DNT. He felt like it didn't come off online early enough, and I said my response was I think in most situations against DNT, you're gonna have the time. And then, from my experience at least, because the DNT clock tends to be a little bit slow against elves because you have to play a little bit defensively or you risk dying, right? Because it's hard to, like the fast clock, so to speak, and it's not really a damage thing, is a fast GT. But if anything, GT enables your Cabal Pit online earlier, right? Um, I mean, there's that. Like that's nice, I think, and definitely I know like we played a few matches ourselves, Jason. Where like Cabal Pit did a lot of work, but um, I do think yeah, that is definitely one nice thing. And I think he brought it up because he had lost to Peacekeeper in the league, but I think that's more what's the word I'm looking for? Cherry on top than anything else. Like the reason why I play Cabal Pit, like honestly, is not because of Peacekeeper out of D&T. The original reason why I actually played it again was Peacekeeper out of Esperville, but that's kind of a different deck, right? Like, and at the time we didn't have Grist, and it was just quite annoying to lose to Peacekeeper lock and with Meddling Mage naming Abrupt Decay, right? At the time. So that's the original reason why I played it. Most people think it's nice against, or most people think it's for Plague Engineer. It is not, right? Like it's good against Plague Engineer. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I make a combo here. Never mind. But it was more so because for Peacekeeper out of Esperville because of Meddling Mage being a big problem. Like Meddling Mage named me Abrupt Decay, and then we at the time Abrupt Decay was still. Thank you for the follow, fencing brick. Abrupt Decay was still pretty popular, right? What did they pitch? I don't even know. I wasn't paying attention, but nonetheless, it was either the swords or the Vista, right? Oof, Jesus. All right. Again, we don't have threshold on here. It's won't be on for this is gonna be 5, 6. It will be on I guess next turn, but a little slow, right? You get comboed here. Oh, we have the bog, I believe, but let me just double check. Yeah, we do. I think I'm gonna pitch this. So I guess if against their combo hands, it's not fast enough, but maybe that's okay because we do have 4 Thoughtseize as well as protection, and maybe we don't need it on like right away. Like it's online now, right? Otherwise, is the K worth considering for the or too redundant with trophy? I think it's too redundant with trophy personally. We have all our fetchables out, unfortunately. I think I'm gonna. Okay, one, two, three, four, five, six. The reason why I'm doing it this way because we don't have any more fetchables, so I can pitch the Misty Rainforest for the Guy's Cradle. Sure. I do think it's funny that our opponent here has switched to the Jeskai version because they were one of the first ones that I know to consistently play the Bant iteration, so to speak, pun not intended, of the Hull Breacher undoing combo. And now I think maybe they're second guessing themselves because the Jeskai version has been popular. But I do know that they were quite successful, at least on leagues. Granted, leagues are like a cesspool and vulnerable to these kind of combos, but nevertheless. All right, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. If we hoof here right now, it's not lethal, so not worth it yet. Okay, so a couple of things about that. I think that's okay. What am I doing? That's terrible. I forgot about the hull breacher, but that's fine. I like make mana off the cradle, right? I do kind of. Ugh, sure. I do kind of wish I had that Cabal Pit now because it would have been able to take off the hull breacher. Although my silly self would have forgot anyways, right? Two, three, four, five, six, seven. Nope. Yeah, I just like. I don't know how this deck does against Delver because these kind of combos tend to not be very good against Delver in general. But I do know it when you put it against other Wombo combo decks, probably pretty good with one of yours is naturally a good card, right? In Hullbreacher and Narset. I can see that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that DNT won the Super PTQ, right? Like, what I would say is the most fair Magic in Legacy, or one of the most fair. All right, so that's pretty. Oh, okay, the cage is out now. Not that it matters. The Progenitus is in our hand. Excuse me. Oh, so going back to the leagues, right? Like I find that a lot of the Delver players I play on leagues tend to be sharks because pun intended here, right? Tend to be sharks because who would play Delver in leagues? The problem is it's not that common. Yeah, I don't know how good it is to be honest, right? Like when you're trying to like, it's yeah, maybe it is. We are 1-1 at the moment, but this doesn't look very promising, unfortunately. Maybe we get lucky. We'll see. Against it, what's the? I'm assuming is this the Hull Breacher combo, Jason, or was this something else? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about because like nobody likes getting mind twisted, right? That's why the card is probably gonna stay banned. Yeah. So, fencing break. To that point, I played it against it twice. Two versions actually. One being Bant and the other one being Jeskai in the Super. In the fourth round, I lost to it because I just didn't assume people would actually play this stuff in a big event. And maybe it's popular because it won the challenge the previous week. That's a great quote. I love it, Romario. And then in round eight, I kind of adjusted to myself. I adjusted because I asked. Oh, okay. Yikes. All right, so it's not our night. That's okay. I did win round eight because I said I asked Adam Wallace, my good friend, is this something I should just assume that they're gonna have now, like the Hull Breacher plus Days of Doing? And he said probably. And then what was I gonna say? Oh, he said probably, and then because I had adjusted for that, I won my round eight match because I wasn't caught with my pants down like I was in round four, where I misboarded as a result. Right, I boarded in the endurances when I should have boarded in the thought season. If I had made the assumption that people are gonna play, if Hull Breacher just automatically implies Days and Doing now. Yeah, I can see that being a problem, right? At least with elves, I even actually stole game one, round eight, because I had an active grist for I don't know my stream my Sunday stream reviewing the super event uh, shows on YouTube, but I managed to win because I already had a grist on board and it's like five or six whatever it was insect tokens, and then that went the distance, right? Because they were already below 10. But so I did manage to 2-0 the deck on Saturday. Yeah. Okay, there we go again. We're dead. I can't see us winning at this point. Maybe one more top deck, we'll see. Actually, it doesn't even matter, right? Because they have a cage. We're just dead. I was thinking about Progenitus, but that's okay. We're 1-2. Um, I think I think the big takeaway for this match, like I don't really mind losing anymore in leagues. In general, I used to like not. I'm like pretty competitive in the sense that I don't like to lose, but I take it like with a grain of salt, just for I don't want to raise my blood pressure and whatnot because leagues at the end of the day don't really matter. But I think the big takeaway here, and what I'm happy about, is I think in game two, we should probably mulligan that hand, given we know they're on the combo. Game three, it's one of those things like they drew well and we didn't. So I'm okay with that. Potentially the Cabal Pit is fast enough. It would have been there, right? All right. So since you want to bring it up, I know people say leagues are noise. To an extent, people are right. But keep in mind, this was said by Alan Wu, who went to Stanford, a rival of Cal, which is my alma mater. And Alan Wu, once upon a time, said he didn't understand Reclaimer in Elves. So, for a smart guy, that's a very strange statement, and I will leave it at that. I don't trust anybody who doesn't know the value of Elvish Reclaimer in Elves. Like, that's the short story on that, right? For the background story is obviously for those who don't know, Jarvis was streaming my build at the time, and uh, Allosaurus Shepherd had just been printed, and I couldn't figure out the correct number at the time, so we were just testing, and Alan, was hypercritical and I mean, if I might say so myself, quite rude. I mean, I'll put it that way. But I guess what do you expect out of somebody from Stanford, right? Quite rude on stream to me, and because I was on stream because Jarvis was streaming my list, Ethan at the time. So for whatever it's worth, I guess the reputation is true about what they say about people who win at Stanford, right? So that's how I know about it because I was on stream when it happened, or I was on Twitch chat, I should say, is what happened. So I saw his comments. They did win a Preeti, so there's that too, right? But yeah, that is my default answer when people say leagues are noise. I don't know if I trust that, although it's generally true. So Jarvis, being the politician that he is, will say there's merits to both sides, right? Sometimes you do have more fun, with the Nettle Sentinel combo build. I will give you that. Like, there is definitely an appeal, especially the more what is it called? For the veteran, I guess is probably the best way I can say it, Elves crowd. There's this nostalgia to drawing your whole deck with Nettle Sentinel. Although I think in today's Legacy, probably win more. And if you do like that feeling, there is also the option of the hybrid build, right? You can run a list with both Nettle Sentinel and Elvish Reclaimer. There is enough room for whatever that's worth. Or the old Chalice turn one. It might not just be our night. Yes, so there's that too, right? Like, I mean, good luck drawing your deck when Hull Breacher's a thing. I think my biggest issue with Nettles is, and why it was the first cut when I first iterated on this deck before Allosaurus Shepherd got printed and over Query Ranger, is because I think the card doesn't make mana on its own. Is my biggest gripe with it. We do have Shepherd, but this is quite the clock, right? Sure. Fun fact about Karn getting uh-oh. We're gonna get wheeled. Fun fact about Karn getting engineer explosives sometimes. I have seen many Chalice players cast their engineer explosives sure on one into a Chalice of the Void. That for some reason, okay, they did us a favor here, right? The good old one of collective. I mean, not necessarily. We might get away with this, right? We're not quite dead yet, Ethan. A great friend of mine, Max Thorson, aka Max Gilmore, had a great quote a while ago. He said he used to assume the worst in Chalice players in the sense that when people would try to cast a one drop into Chalice and miss the trigger, but then when he started playing online, he said he saw enough Chalice players make that mistake that he is no longer skeptical of them cheating on paper. I think that is a fantastic anecdotal experience. I appreciate you can appreciate that story, fencing break. So we'll see how much work this card does here. We happen to naturally draw it after they wield us, which is the irony, right? That's true. That is true. Dang, the shade being thrown in this Twitch chat today is pretty lit, right? The shade being thrown. So let's see just how functional their deck is without, with a null rod in play. Wow, this is quite the greed here, right? All right. I don't mind a little banter for sure, but I'll only say this once, I guess. And I don't think this will be a problem, to be honest. Um, and this goes without. This should go without saying. And I think chat already knows what I'm heading towards. Again, I don't mind any friendly banter. Anything derogatory is definitely not allowed, so to speak. I don't think that will be an issue, but I figured I just mentioned that just in case. No slurs is what I'm getting at, but I don't think that would be an issue. All right. The good thing is our opponent may just cast the lattice, not realizing it's gonna cost him the game. I don't think we can do anything here. For sure, fencing break, Justin. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna be an issue. I think most people are. I think I'll. I don't want to. They could have the hull breacher. I think I'm just gonna regret that if they do. No, no, no. Okay, so they did have the hull breacher. Jesus. Yeah. So no slurs. Period. I don't care from Stanford or whatnot. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Slurs are not tolerated, regardless. Sure. I actually screwed up. I should have fetched an arbor. They just lost the game. Our opponent just did not realize we have a collector Oof on board. They do, but they're down behind 10 points for damage. I made the small mistake. I don't think it'll cost us, but we'll see. I made the small mistake of not fetching the arbor. We'll see if that matters or not. It may. Yeah, I really hope we didn't just punt by not fetching. Fetching. They are on a 3 turn clock after this. We're on a 2 turn clock. Probably okay. I think we will get there. We're guaranteed to get there though if we draw an arbor. Or just yield. I think we have it, but if my math is my back of the envelope math is correct, right? They go to two. If they attack with both, they lose. If they block, they still lose because they're off by 1 damage. They may attack with just Emery here and try to steal a point of damage. No, because we the turns that they couldn't block. If we attack here, I don't think we can actually. We actually screwed up. Yeah, I think it's gonna cost us now based on the way this is played out. Unless we draw the Arbor to buy a turn. Oh, that punt by us. We didn't fetch. Oof, this is painful. Small mistake by me just costing me here. Our opponent even threw too. But so it is. Yeah, we made a game. We didn't actually yeah, I should have fetched. That was a game losing non-play, so to speak. But I'll just concede. We're already dead. Nice. It's always nice to see another player be on Doomsday. We'll see if we can salvage this punt by us. Feels real bad, not gonna lie, that I did that. That one's on me, chat. That one is definitely on me. I think Trap has some merit in case they go all in. Kind of wishing I had the ley lines here. Thank you for the follow, Ben XD, Ben Happy Face. I think we want the speed. Probably this is fine. I screwed that up big time. What happens is, well, maybe not actually, because I would have to think about how that played out, but it's potentially we what's it called? We still lose because if we fetch there, we're at a different number, right? Yeah, this is potentially a ley line league. I I've often joked that graveyard players have this spider sense. They somehow always know when I cut it, and it's just like out in full force. Although I did preface it by today, we're playing during a prelim time, so we're playing against the decks that lose to Delver essentially. I think we keep this for. Yeah, I actually screwed. No, you're right, Jason. It slipped my mind actually that we can attack Karn and turn on our deck. So that was just like a multiple brain fart on my behalf. Jason's actually absolutely right. Like, I don't know why I just like spaced out. I could have just taken Karn off their board, and so that was just a big punt, like on multiple levels on me. Like I just like went into autopilot because I thought the game was over, and that's unfortunately on me, right? Like nobody to blame but myself on that because I like punted multiple ways there. That would be yeah, like it's something that I've actually has come up before. I don't know why it's like spaced out there. It does, but I can play my creatures, right? And then like they're locked out. Well, actually, let me think about that. No, I think okay. Let me think. So Collective shuts off, but then Lattice makes everything an artifact, right? I think everything's still shut off, right? Isn't that the case, Jason? If I'm thinking about it correctly, I have to look at Lattice. All permanents are artifacts in art. Yeah, I could do that. That's true. Yeah, actually, it's just a weird thing. Just I should not even have let it come to that, but that is one thing. What's going on now? I temporarily forgot what's going on. All right. So view sideboard. We do have the. Oh, I boarded out the bog because I thought they were on the echo list. Hmm. So they can get back a bauble. Do I care? They can cast the echo next turn. I think given I think given the board state, potentially we just set up a kill here with Shepherd next turn. I kind of like that, actually. Actually, no. That's fine. No, I don't want Trophy Saga. I don't actually care about Saga. Saga is actually secretly a card that reads target combo player gets better. It's quite slow against combo. It's good against as a beater, but that's typically not what you want against combo. Sure. Okay, so they know what's the writing on the wall, right? We have a lot of damage coming in. All right, maybe we can do the recovery, right? We can potentially salvage this. Given that we saw the Emery now, I think we probably want the bog. We can board out another Wirewood. It's kind of useless here. My favorite thing, actually, against these Chalice players, They often have Pithing Needle because of Saga. Um, good. What's it called? Good catch, Jason. So, Karak is potentially worth it too. Probably just don't need any copies, right? Like screw it. If they actually, yeah, I think screw it because they have Chalice. If they didn't have Chalice, I think there's an argument to make you split between Wirewood and Visionary. One of my favorite things is these Chalice players will name with Pithing Needle Wirewood. I'm like boarded out like most of the copies. It's quite funny when it happens. Um, Probably given their Chalice deck, I'd probably keep. Uh, Not great though. Ideally, your opening hand against these decks is like either Green Sun or Collective, like the 5 of. Leyline's quite nice against this deck too. Yeah, there's that too. Oh, this is kind of nice. I hope they just like all in and like play all their baubles, and then I can just naturally bog them, right? Prismatic Command? Interesting. The nice thing about this is it actually helps the Once Upon a Time because I can wait another turn before having to fire it off. So it's another look, right? For the collector Oof or one or land or whatever you want. Looks like they do not have whatever they want. This smells like Hull Breacher though, so that's scary. Alright, time to fire this off. Mm, I think it's gotta be this, right? It's the redundant piece, and then um, it's the most threatening piece. What I mean by that is the difference between Reclaimer and Knight of the Reliquary is big because this is only 1 mana investment, and the opponent is obligated to kill it anyways in most situations. The exception being is like some kind of combo, right? Like where they can just ignore it and they don't depend on the graveyard. But yeah, big difference between this and Knight of the Reliquary. This being 1 mana means you're more efficient because they're incentivized to kill it anyways. You don't have to front the 3 mana or 4 mana with Green Sun, right? Sure. Pretty important play coming up here, and I'll reveal why. I'm gonna lead with. So a play that people will make as a mistake here a lot is they'll go Birch Lore and tap the Birch Lore to Reclaimer to make 1 because they think, oh, I'm gonna add 1 to the Cradle count. The problem with that is it's still less efficient than if you had just not made the mana and play a Heritage because that taps for 3, right? So 3 might. Long story short is the difference between Heritage and Birch Lore is 2 mana, but the 1 you gain from Cradle is not enough to justify it, and that's a mistake I see a lot of inexperienced elf players make. Hopefully, what I said just makes sense, right? Like, I think here probably just want to lead with the Birch Lore, and then we can dig. Oops, I almost clicked. This would have been nice to be honest, but it is what it is. I think we just run out our board to be frank. I am not gonna attack in case they have a second breacher. It's now or never for our opponent. They can combo us here or take a lot of damage. Yeah. So Ethan's talking about that too, right? All right. What do they have here? Maybe a needle. Uh oh. Oh no. Jesus. Sure. This is quite greedy, right? We can actually respond to that if we had like a endurance, but maybe we're just dead now. We have to fade removal here, unfortunately, and I think they probably have it. It's one of those days, unfortunately, or nights, I should say. Definitely was a ley line league. We're gonna yield. We can't do anything anyways, right? Let's see what they have. Wheel again? Oh no, they still have a echo in the yard. So, oh my god. All right, now we're dead. The punt was really game one. Unfortunately, we should be dead. Although the nice thing is I can use this. Well, actually, they're going to combat. Well, I wonder why. Why would they do that? Interesting. I don't really understand the logic here. They have an echo that they can just cast again. Like they know we don't have a hand. Sure. But yeah, we threw game one by not fetching, just thinking the game was over, and I didn't actually. Uh, I just figured, oh, they can attack three, but we can attack two. They probably can't make the difference, and that was the difference. But hard to say, right? It's a possible chance that they would have won anyways because we would have been at a multiple of three. I can just think that and then make myself feel better too. But long story short, it was game changing. Our opponent is just toying with us. We're just gonna go ahead and concede. Like they should be able to win. I don't know what's going on. We are 1-3 in this league. I'm just gonna finish off this league, and maybe we can salvage a 2-3, I guess. Um, Definitely punted game one here. Hard to say if it would have changed anything. Here, this is not registering leyline. That was my. This is what I get, right? It's a card that I have thought about in the past. I've tried a lot of different cards. I do not think it's. Hey, Francisco, how's it going, man? Uh, I hope you're feeling better from the COVID. I caught it myself earlier in the year, and I'm fully recovered now. You just got to get through it. I had cold-like symptoms plus a headache. So if you have a headache, obviously the Tylenol would help. But I do hope you're feeling better. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, Francisco. Yeah, especially once this dies down. I know like you live in the larger LA County area too, so I think it would be cool if we ever met up for sure. Cause I do live in Umbrea, which is like border, but I think that would be pretty cool. Grab beers or whatever together. For those who don't know, Francisco and I are big Reclaimer stands, and he I saw his advice because I at the time was pretty green to modern when I played in the mocks in 2020. So shout out to Francisco, all around nice dude in my opinion. This is a known reanimator player. They're playing like the weird Witherbloom. Yeah, for sure, Francisco. I know, like, yeah. For those who also don't know, Francisco has a newborn as well. Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to. So second baby, I believe, but tough to handle the baby at the moment with being sick, and especially if the baby gets sick too, right? I think here we'll keep not the best hand, but it's like decent. I don't want to go to five. Our opponent is likely on Reanimator, so we're gonna lose game one regardless. All right, there it is. Oh, was supposed to once upon a time here. There we go, 2023 when things are looking up, right? I think I saw the Spanish flu in whatever year it was, 1912. Lasted roughly about 2 years, and then I don't think it matters that we didn't once in response. We should have. That was a mistake on my behalf, but better luck. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a thing. I need to ask Inigo, who's helped me with the stream, do that. I do think that that would be a great emo for sure, Francisco. I think here we just lead with the mana, right? Like, uh, Heritage is probably safe, or Birchlore, either way. For those who also don't know, Francisco, being the big Reclaimer fan that he is, in 2020, I saw one. Sorry, yeah, 2020, I saw one of the coolest things I had ever seen, which was a sibling Christmas Reclaimer Elves stream. We probably do need that, yeah. I mean, we punted here, it didn't hurt, but I mean, we're probably just dead, right? I'm just gonna concede. I mean, yield turn. I mean, okay, so I wouldn't be surprised. It makes sense that Francisco has the F paw punt here, right? Yeah, okay. I gotta anybody who remembers this. This is probably the highlight of the stream so far. But I gotta go ahead and tell Inigo to help me with these emotes because uh, shout out to Inigo. Everything you see on the stream is his work. So if you so if anybody appreciates this stream, is all the accolades definitely go to Inigo, and then I will ask him about the emotes because I do think it's about time we get it right. I'm looking to for our opponent to end this. I don't expect to win game one, obviously, and it's fitting. I guess this is like, yeah, they're asleep right now, but I will ask them later. I usually leave Inigo a message or whatnot. Uh, we're super getting punished for no ley lines this league, right? Like I said, when I even remove one ley line, I feel like all the reanimator or graveyard players somehow know, and their spidey senses get tingly or whatnot, whatever analogy you want to use, and they come out all out of the woodworks, right? All right, we are we just dead? No, we're not. Probably should be though. Only jokingly, Ethan. Only jokingly. Yeah, I agree, Francisco. I think it's because for a long time, nobody really worked on the deck. Um, like I think Eric Landon doesn't play too seriously anymore. The other thing is, uh, like the win rates of Reanimator for challenges typically are low because a lot of newer players I think play are drawn to the deck. But I think the deck is pretty strong, and probably the percentages are skewed because yeah, it is the dragon version. It's like a weird list, right? Like they have dragon plus um, the sideboard juke of okay. Do we? We're probably gonna lose anyways. Actually, I might as well just concede. There's really no point. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? I think the percentages are skewed, but and then I think reanimator players, or namely Gristlebrand players, were looking for a reason to play either this or show and tell, and I think Canister doing well during the mocks for the showcase qualifier definitely was a reason for that, for the increased reanimator popularity. So we are definitely missing the ley lines this league, unfortunately. This is what I get when I try to get some actual practice against lands, and then I run into just nonstop graveyard shenanigans. Obviously, we don't want the Archon because that just shuts off our entire deck if they reanimate it. I typically will board out the glimpses because they play poorly in terms of sequencing with the endurances. And then, yeah, we don't need this. Grist probably worse here than against traditional reanimator because you don't need to kill like a Sarah emissary or anything like that. I think this is fine. This is actually quite good. At least given that we don't have a ley line in our 75. I think when in doubt, just if you're an Elves player, just play ley line, right? Like, there's just too many things that would otherwise be a horrible matchup become quite favorable, in my opinion. What I a lot of times people will ask me like, what is the single most impactful card in the sideboard or in the deck, right? And in the main deck, I think what does wins the most games by itself is probably the Collector Oof. Only because it's tutorable and just like locks down a lot of decks. And then out of the sideboard, it's probably the Leyline the Void, right? Because graveyard decks are built with blue decks in mind, so they have hand disruption, but hand disruption doesn't stop Leyline the Void. I think here, so they have three reanimation spells and a turn one witch. Probably take the witch and then slam down reclaimer next turn. Pretty straightforward, I think. If they have an entomb here, we're hosed within the next two turns, but we just play the percentages. Uh oh. What am I doing actually? This they can just get it back, right? With the animate dead. Yeah, that's a fail on my behalf. I'm like, didn't even think about that. For sure, Francisco. As an F Paul punt again, right? Not playing the best at the moment, admittedly. Although we are 1-3, so yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just like brain farted there. Sure. Luckily, I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things. Hmm. Do we? No, we don't block here because they have animation spells. And the reason why I say luckily it does well, it does matter. They have it next turn, the Chain of Smog combo. But I think here we can just kill this. The problem with it though is all right. I think I know. Oh, I boarded out the Archon. Yikes. Otherwise, I can name sorcery. I think this is for. We have lethal next turn. So we do have to fade. Well, actually, let me think about that. If we get the yeah, actually, we can fetch here for our what is the word I'm looking for? Arbor, and then we can get a grist, kill this, and then bash, and then next turn bash again for whatever that's worth. Is it instant or sorcery? It is. I think this is reveal. They do, but we have lethal, so they would be forced to block again. Is the thing. So let's. I think we do that. Oops, wrong one. So yeah, so our line here is to force them to chump block for a few turns. Shepherd activation next turn will be lethal. Yeah, exactly. So my play is to so that I don't die, right? I'm afraid of a top deck smog here. So they get a reanimator. I'm okay with that, and then I'm gonna force them to block. Actually, they're just dead, right? This comes in tapped. Where? I didn't even realize this comes in tapped. Yeah, it's. I don't think it's great. We have lethal here, barring some kind of. So the good thing is we made a weird awkward play, but we were able to, not tilt so to speak, and just game plan around that. The only way we lose here was if they had the smog, and by killing the witch, we bought ourselves a turn because they can't do everything the same turn. For sure, Francisco. It's why a lot of blue players have been complaining about the card, because it just randomly helps Elves players win out of nowhere. So yeah, it is being a win con for sure is. I probably would play fewer copies if it weren't a win con, um, only because it can be randomly good, right? Even when it's not. The reason why I'm not playing four, which I mentioned, the reason why I'm playing, okay, so Ethan is talking about that. The reason why I'm only playing three is because it's quite bad against the non-blue, non-chalice decks, and I don't really want to draw like two copies, for instance, or even one is pretty bad against those decks. And for the most part, against the blue decks, I even don't really want to draw it early game. It's really better in the mid game. And you have two early game not making mana. It's not the best. And for those Whoa, two is quite low. I can see it though because I mean, keep in mind we played one before. I think I'm gonna keep this to be honest, given the crop rotation and the assassin's trophy. But I think more than anything else, we want to finish. You know, sure. I mean, I know somebody who plays Land of the World because they have like a alpha, sorry, a beta one, I think. So that's reasonable enough, I guess. I'm gonna tank for a little bit, so they will name what is it called? Endurance. They may name a reclaimer. I don't know. Okay, the name Seize. But yeah, this is a really messed up card. It's like times like this too, where like again, drawing two not the best. You especially in a combo mirror, the ideal number is one. So I mean, maybe Dustin is right. Maybe two is the correct number. I don't think two is like out of the realm for whatever that's worth of possibility. I think here I'm gonna go ahead and tap out, so to speak, because this may make them go for the combo, and then we'll blow them out. It's a little bit dangerous too because if they have a seize into combo, then we get hose. But I don't think they're gonna have that many of those cards, right? It's famous last words, obviously. It'd have to be land, entomb, and reanimate. All exactly those three cards for sure. Endurance is a sick draw here. Probably game winning if they go for it, right? For sure, I think so too, Francisco. Um, in general, I find that focusing on one combo and then beating the hate is better than trying to play two combo decks, so to speak. Yeah, it's mono black for whatever that's worth. It could be a lot of things for sure, Sadra. My guess is maybe another mana dork or utility. Therapy and Reanimator was a thing before with Eric Landon because you can like do cool things like Entomb for it or like name all copies of Force of Will or Surgical Extraction or thing like that. But I think these days Therapy isn't as good because there's just so many random hate you can have it. I think the issue with Scoos for me at the moment is it lines up pretty poorly against Murktide. Okay, sure, I guess. It is. I just don't even think you need the high ceiling anymore because the ceiling on Thoughtseize is pretty high already, but the floor is much higher. And you can bring it in against control decks, especially ones like the Hull Breacher that oh, sure. How did okay? Because they hard casted it. Sure. That's fair enough, I guess. I don't even. I think you want to be able to proactively stop like combos out of. What am I looking for? I think you want to be able to stop combos preemptively out of. We have everything lined up here. It's kind of neat. Combos out of control decks, right? Uh, the old turn two Gris. And again, this is I'm thinking about how I lose, right? I lose the game to a top deck Smog, and now our opponent is just like really against the wall, right? Like we have the endurance in hand. The Gris is gonna start taking over the game. Like I think the game is virtually locked from here. Famous last words, but again, like I said, I think assuming tight play, which has been sketchy for me tonight, we should be locked from here. Um, we could, bash for 10 here. I think we leave up the cradle though. Given that we don't have a pitch for the endurance, right? right, they conceded. We salvaged the 2-3 league. Um, More of the story, maybe we need to play ley line, but it wasn't the worst. Let's go back to the matchups, I guess. We beat our I guess budget reanimator, what do you or two game plan reanimator, whatever you want to call it. We lost to this Emery deck, but we did punt game one for whatever that's worth. So maybe not the end of the world. We just straight up lost here and straight up lost here. So yeah, not having Leyline did hurt. I'm gonna take a quick break, not break, quick 1 minute restroom break and come back. And then I guess if anybody has recommendations for what they want me to try in the sideboard, I'll leave that up temporarily. So I'll close this first because we're gonna change the deck list. Probably want some number of Leyline. Uh, and then take a look, see what you like, and then I will be right back in a minute. All right, I am back, and I see people are curious about Ivan Espinosa's list at the NRG event. All right, so I mentioned this a little bit in my one of the previous streams. For those who don't know, Ivan actually lives like a mile away from me currently. Um, I don't see him too often, but we have gone to like events in the past. Not together, but because in what's it called? I think he travels for events, and I don't really travel for events, but I do know Ivan like reasonably well. He's a good friend of mine. Um, so he mentioned this a little bit during the interviews, and he picked up the deck after he saw Jurg, myself, and Peter top eight the Eternal Weekend events with essentially this exact list, right? Or okay, I'll change it a little bit. I'll take out what wasn't in the list. So this was more or less the Eternal Weekend list. Yeah, I live in LA for sure, Francisco. But the ley lines were the Force of Vigors because we expected 8 cast and DNT to be quite popular in the event, and it would give us a game against lands as well, which is I think the Elves' most problematic matchup at the moment. The Caracas was a wasteland because of Tabernacle, and the fourth Once Upon a Time was the fourth Shepherd. Okay, so I'm in Brea, if you know where that's at. And Ivan also is from Brea, but we just don't see each other too often because, doing different things. I'm working, whatnot. Also, COVID, right? The So going back to the NRG list, leading up to the NRG, he had qualified by top eighting the Legacy event. I think before that, in I want to say like the first or second week of December. I think it was the second week of December, that weekend. I think it was Milwaukee. And what he did was he joined my Discord, he subscribed to my Patreon, and then given that he knew me already, like at least on a from some events in the past, and he knew that it had done real. Yeah, unfortunately, Francisco, Tarzana is quite far from where we're at the moment. Because we're almost in Orange County, right? Yeah, exactly. We're close to Anaheim, and or even near Cal State Fullerton. And then he had asked me, and then he picked up a list not too actually different than this one, uh, to qualify. He top aided the NRG Milwaukee event, I think it was, and then his list wasn't too far different than mine. He had two crop rotations because he wanted to hedge more towards Merit Lage decks and Tabernacle decks that are like lands and green white depths that he said would be popular in that area, and he did well. And then he asked me also for the championship. What are some ways to improve against Delver and lands and Merit Lage? I said, oh, you can run afoul, which is really nice, and you can cut the collector oof from the main deck. Another thing you can do, I said, was the crop rotation probably not great main deck against Delver if you expect it. Unfortunately, he took my advice, but he didn't run by the final list with me. So he moved the endurances to the main deck. And if he had told me ahead of time, I would have shot that down immediately because I knew he was gonna have mana issues. Which he told me he did, and he said if he could do it again, he definitely would not have added the multiple endurances main deck because as is, the curve is already quite high. Like you have uh, two uncastables essentially. This is like until late game. Three bombs, but not great against Delver, right? And then two 3 drops, and then he added two more endurances, and I knew that was a recipe for disaster against Delver, and he confirmed as much. Um, but even without me saying so, because I saw the coverage later on, even before I got a chance to text him, like, oh, you're not supposed to add the endurances to the main deck. Like, you should fill it out with more mana producers if you're gonna cut the collector oof. And he said, yeah, I realized that during the event that he made the mistake, and he admitted so in the interview as well. Um, okay, let's see. Yeah, so I've been to Nightwear a few times that Dustin mentioned. I know Lori, like, I haven't been, unfortunately, ever since the start of COVID, but pretty awesome store, I think. But Tarzana's quite far, Francisco. If you're ever, I guess, closer, maybe we can meet up, but it's quite the drive for both of us, for sure. But yeah, COVID it makes it really tough these days. Fire and Dice is just super far for me, Francisco. Great question, Jason. I'm not gonna deny. As a kid, I liked the Lakers, and then they traded away one of my favorite players, and then I just changed teams. So I currently support the Clippers because I'm gonna age myself here. They traded Nick Van Exel for those of you who know who that is. Um, so unfortunately, yeah, I am a Clippers fan. I know this might get me canceled, of course, but it is what it is. They finally made the Western Conference Finals for the first time last year, which is kind of sad to say, right? But that's what happens when you have a racist owner for many years. Good thing they got rid of him, and now we have arguably not only the arguably the best owner in sports. Sorry, in NBA, but arguably the best owner in sports. But that's up for debate. Definitely top 5, I think, in sports. Yeah, Nightwear is in like the Studio City area. I believe that's accurate. With that said, what would chat like me to play? I think I do want to test the what's it called? Maybe we don't need it. I feel like the lands matchup is like getting close, but just so unsafe to run leagues without leyline. I'm not gonna run layer, Ethan. I don't think it's good enough. Okay, so it's either this with the excavator or with that. I think I'll just run this list because this is what is like pretty stock, I guess. Lair of the Hydra is what Ethan is referencing. Yeah, so that's the cool thing about Lori. They do have a lot of legacy decks for for people to borrow. Unfortunately, excuse me, paper play is not you know too exciting for me at least at the moment because of COVID. Nice. I think Maverick, like you know, when I think of Maverick, I think about the time where I kind of started getting back into Magic, right? There's the holy trinity of at the time Maverick, Stoneblade, and Rug Delver as the three pillars, so to speak, of Legacy. I think for those who know, Vidiyanto Wijaya won GP Denver, I think in 2013 or so, with Esper Stoneblade, and that was roughly the time where I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy into Elves because Matt Nass had top eight with Elves as well, and then you know, that was the beginning for me, I guess, of Legacy Elves. I think I'll keep. Yeah, I think anybody who knows um, Francisco and myself, we have said repeatedly uh, that Elvish Reclaimer is the best creature in Legacy and in Modern. Although Modern, it depends if you count Lurrus, right? That's like almost like an EDX General. Maybe that's the best creature in Modern. What do you think? I'll defer to Francisco since he's the Modern expert. What is the best creature in Modern? And please do not say Primeval Titan. I know that is gonna jump off the top of your head to jump to say. Yeah, Elves is the best Cradle deck, that's for sure. Yeah, I saw. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like anytime there's a broken land, whether that be Flagstones or Urza Saga or Gaia's Cradle, Cloud Post. Yeah, so especially pre-companion, right, Francisco. So that's why I said, yeah, I saw that. That's pretty awesome. I mean, for those who don't know, Francisco is the original. He deserves all the credit for this. He's the original inventor of green white reclaimer in modern, uh, and it was because of him and others that I picked that deck up for modern. All right, so our opponent, the respect for reclaimer, taking it first. I think we ramp obviously here. Will did, yeah. So best creature ever has to be DRC. I don't know, man. Lurrus is pretty good, like especially pre ban Lurrus. Yeah, so Francisco's saying exactly what I'm saying. Like I don't know if you played at all during that time, Dustin, but I'll put it this way. And I played actually against Francisco in the showcase qualifier in 2020, and that essentially was companion showcase qualifier, right? You either had Yorion, Zerda, or Lurrus, and then pre nerf, what was it again? Pre nerf Lurrus was just insane. Yeah, we should have played a land to play around days, by the way. Yeah, so I played against Francisco in the finals, and he was on a Yorion deck, and I was on Elves, but with Lawrence in the sideboard because the game plan against Delver during that time was I still wanted natural order for the other decks, but I wanted Lurrus as a way to outgrind the Delver decks, and then what I would do is I board out the natural order package, which is convenient because it's something I want to do anyways, and then I would transition into companion against them, and it caught a lot of Delver players by surprise that event. And having played it myself, I think Lurrus is completely broken, better than Deathbright, for sure pre-ban, and I don't think it's close. For those curious how good I think it is, even after Lurrus got banned, but before the companion nerf, I was Yeah, yeah. Even before the companion nerf, I even played Giganta in the sideboard because just it turns out having another card is just broken. Like so I replaced Lurrus after the ban with Giganta. Oh god. Yeah, it was absolutely nuts. So what I figured out during that time was um, I had opponents. What they would do is let me do this first. Thank you for the follow. I hear the sound. Sorry. Thank you for the follow, Chilius. Oops. I guess. Oops. Oh, attacked first. Yeah, it was completely unreasonable. So it was sad state of affairs because leading up to the event, I used to be favored. We used to be really favored against Delver, and then suddenly we weren't anymore. And I was like, man, how do I beat this deck? Because I want to board out natural orders, and then I figured it out. Well, I guess the only way we beat a Lurrus getting back Dreadhorde Arcanist is a Lurrus getting back Elvish Visionary, and it worked out quite well because Scavenging Ooze was the trump, right? Not to mention Reclaimer meant that we could fetch up Caracas, and not that would bounce their Lurrus or protect our own, and it was I will say it was probably the most fulfilling event ever for me in terms of what I had theory crafted and what I kept under wraps because I had not revealed it to the public that this is what I figured out. Um, it worked exactly the way we planned it. And shout out to Jax who actually helped me test the day before in this event. People know Jax as a combo player, but what people don't realize about him is he can play Delver too. And we tested the matchup and we concluded, oh, we should be favored now with this transition game plan. And I beat, in my opinion, on that run, three of the probably top 10 Delver players in the world. And again, I don't even think maybe I'm better. Doesn't mean I'm a better player than them. It's just I think the game plan came together. Um, so I was quite proud of that moment because it was when theory crafting worked out the way you intended, right? And then I do want to. I mean, with Francisco here too, I give Francisco a shout out too because I know it can be tough to lose in a big event like that, and Francisco was the most generous. What's it called? He congratulated me after the event, which was pretty sweet to be honest. I think here we just pitch natural order and win, right? Actually, what I could have done, yeah. Also, Francisco did stream that event, and I did not know this too until after the fact. But so there is a replay in his archive, probably on YouTube somewhere, for those who want to check out the match. No, I don't think so. Francisco, I know you're a fantastic player. I think what happened also was it's especially hard at the time too because this version of the deck was not very popular, and I had what's it called? I think the matchup did favor me too, for whatever that's worth. Not necessarily one player is better or not than the other, but I do think one thing I really appreciated from Francisco was a nice congratulatory words that he had given me after the event was over, and I know it's not the easiest, obviously, to do that after a tough loss, so to speak. So, like good sportsmanship, I guess, is what I took away from Francisco for sure in that event. The 80 cards, yeah, it's tough. I think with 80 cards, right, you're less likely to see sideboard cards, and I don't know what Francisco had in his list. I don't remember at the time. I just remember him deluging me game one. I'm thinking, man, this is like looking real bad, and then I happened to draw real hot afterwards. Yeah, so there was a Sylvan library going on. So like it looked real bleak to be honest too. And I think I mulled to five if I remember correctly. And then game two, I just happened to have a strong hand, right? Because sometimes things even out. And my game one hand was like kind of bad to be honest. I think here, what are we doing? I think we want, I think C's. I think they're on a combo deck of some sort. Um, so we definitely want C's. Probably not the endurance because if they're on some kind of combo deck that's not graveyard based. Probably have Plague Engineer. Possible they have Archon, but I think I'm gonna board it out. What else do they potentially have? I think I'm okay with this actually. Yeah, I mean that would make sense too because I remember feeling I was behind, like especially on the mode of five, and then for whatever it's worth, I think Francis. I watched the replay afterwards. I think Francisco like whiffed off the library like many turns in a row, if that's accurate. Yeah, exactly. So Francisco talking about the deck, not, unfortunately not cooperating because one of the things about Yorion is it is 80 cards, so you're less likely to see I guess your win condition, right? And I think he swept me with a deluge or no, it was what is it called? Dead of Winter. That's what it was. I think he swept me with a Dead of Winter that he had found, and then I only got back into the game I think for two reasons. I think he definitely whiffed, so I wasn't under extreme pressure, and then I drew really really well for whatever that's worth. So a little bit of history, and then ever since then, Francisco and I have been, good friends. Like I consider Francisco a good friend, especially since his willingness to. Ooh, all right, I guess we take the deluge. Speaking of sweepers, right? Demir Infiltrator, I guess as a tutor target. Sure. Yeah, I think so too, right? Because you definitely swept me, and I think you have even a Snapcaster for the Dead of Winter. So it was just like pretty bad overall for me. And then I just happened to chain a few cards to get off the glimpse or something, and then and then eventually got out of it. And then game two, I think I had a really strong hand if I remember correctly. The moral of the story though from that event was definitely play companions. Like I think if you count my list as half a companion because I boarded it into it against Delver, yes, 7.5 companions in the top eight. I think here we take the tutor, right? Probably what I'm most afraid of. I don't think I care about removal really. All right, and then play the symbiote. I'll just yield turn as I'm trying to catch up with the chat here. Bedtime story. Yeah, I guess I do tell stories, right? All right, what am I playing around here? Uh, I guess we know about these. I think we bash. I don't think they have any like. I mean, maybe they have flash and we get punished. We'll see, right? I think we want to deck thin, so I'm gonna play my fetch here. Sure. There's an argument to hold for glimpse, but I think we want to at least put on some kind of reasonable board presence, given that we're flooding out a little bit. But yeah, I think one of the big takeaways definitely from that event was I think there were a few, right? Like at the time, definitely play companions, um, good sportsmanship, definitely on Francisco's behalf. I did not bring in the endurance. Ethan, and I'm unfortunately flooding here. And finally, I was pretty happy with when the theory matches the results, right? Or the results matches the theory, I guess. I think the math is like completely different, right? I think somebody like wrote some paper a long time ago, whatever it was, that it wasn't worth it. I highly disagree. I think it definitely matters. Don't get me wrong, like I wouldn't waste a fetch just to deck thin if I can like use it for an arbor or something. But if it's free, you might as well do it, right? All right, looks like we're probably dead. I think they probably have Oracle in hand. Also, I think the more your deck draws, the more it's relevant too, right? We're probably dead, but we'll see. Let's see. I forgot what we seized. I think we took. Oh, we took the deluge, and then what did they? They revealed, and then we took the tutor. I think that's fine actually. All right, take care, Sadra. Thanks for dropping by. I think yeah, in a blue, it's probably less relevant because the fetch is more important to put things back to, right? Ugh, all right. Yeah, I think it's also because of brainstorm, right? That's the other thing. Like the fetches are so more valuable in the sense that you're more incentivized to what's the word I'm looking for? You're more incentivized to save them for ponders and brainstorms. Whereas in elves, like you don't have those cards. Like they're relevant for arbors, obviously. So if I need the arbor, I won't, just blow a fetch for no reason, so to speak. Um, but the fetches in context of elves are more so to be used because you want reclaimer to be big, and then you want potentially cabal pit, right? Sure. All right. So unfortunately here, nothing we can do. Maybe this means Um, I wonder if this. Well, let me see. If they have Oracle here, maybe we put the endurance. What do you think, chat? Is boarding endurance correct here? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think C's is probably still good. Um, but we have room, right? I don't think we want Grist anymore. They could have Engineer, but I think we'd just take our chances. Uh, yeah, I think I like this. That's fair. Although we have more cards against Dooms, right? Because Trophy comes in, and I don't know how good Trophy is against them here. This is probably a keep. Definitely not playing around the wastelands or whatnot anymore. Also, the reason here is yeah. Again, I'm using the fetch to make my Once Upon a Time slightly better potentially. Um, I think here we take the Shepherd. And then we run out the Heritage Druid. If they seize us, we'd rather they seize the shepherd. Did we see the tainted pack? Maybe they did. Oh, actually, you're right. We saw those weird lands. So yeah, you're right. Ethan. Yeah, they play some really sketchy stuff over there. Sure. It's kind of good, right? We have a redundant copy. I'm thinking about what we name here if we Archon. I feel like it's sorcery, maybe? Instant is like quite good too, though. I think we pitched this. All right, we drew it out at least. Yeah, instant's like fair. Actually, we didn't. It's pretty funny. We bluffed it out, right? We didn't even add the Archon in the deck. I think we boarded it out. Yeah, we did. So that's kind of funny. But they have to respect it, right? We forgot to board it back in. I think I play this. Probably Bash. I don't suspect they have Opposition Agent or Hull Breacher, but you never know. It's possible, I guess. What was the third one? There's Planeswalker and there is Enchantment and Artifact too. Ethan, you can't name creature. You can't name land or tribal. I think I. That's all of them. It's like 5 or so of them. Let me see. Here's Archon. Artifact, Enchantment, Instant, Sorcery, Planeswalker. So yeah, 5 of them. Some blue one. The third mill spell. Yeah, oh yeah, Thought Lash. That's an enchantment. It could be Tainted Pack here. Oh, okay. Oops, wrong one. I think I want to do it this way. Oops. What this does is potentially I can hardcast the Craterhoof later on. Endure is not so great against the Thought Lash though, but good against Paradigm Shift. I forget what else they have to exile. Consultation against is another. So probably the Endure is not that great actually, to be honest. Alright, so they 3-drop. What is that gonna be? Actually this is a 2-drop. So Oracle, okay. Yeah, so I don't think it's actually great. Hopefully it doesn't bite us here. We didn't draw it, so it didn't matter, at least yet. Or so far is probably the best word. Arbor's pretty neat here. It actually adds 2 mana because of Cradle as well. We have 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need a cradle off the top. We have an oracle. Man, getting a. We are not. We didn't draw any of our sideboard cards. What is going on? Maybe that's a good thing that we draw the endurance though. I don't think trophy is good. It's good against the thought lash, but that's about it. Maybe we bring it anyways because that's one of the ways we lose. Don't think we like Leyline. If we bring in the trophies, we probably take out the glimpse at this point. For whatever that's worth. They shuffled off, which is a good sign. Took 10. Yeah, that's fair. Game winning in response to end of turn paradigm shift. Bogging. Oh god, let me see. Bogging response to shift if they don't have Oracle in play is good too. Wait, why would that be good, Mike? I'm confused. So 4, 5, 6, 7. We're just short right now. All right, we have lethal next turn. Ah, man, leagues sometimes. Well, leagues on a prelim night, obviously, right? We're getting memed on, as the kids would say. Ugh, one turn late. So this is gonna name Abandoned Hope here, right? We did not draw any sideboard cards this game, unfortunately. All right. So it goes. Well, what they can do with the tainted pack is just exile the whole deck, right? It's like another consultation. Actually, what I'm thinking, consultation is not even legal in Legacy. Uh, my apologies for forgetting that because it's somehow legal in Dual Commander, believe it or not. Because you can actually lose if it's in the top 6 cards, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Probably have one piece of backup hand disruption or something too, right? Oh, it's not a hand disruption. Yes. Believe it or not, yeah, demonic consultation is illegal in Dual Commander. When I say Dual Commander, I mean 1v1. I just use it as another tutor in my Goblins EDH deck. Valkyrie 099. I'm actually not familiar with this user. I know Romario thinks I know every user, but I'm not familiar with this user here. The old turn 1 reclaimer. Best legacy creature as of right now. All right. As a general rule of thumb, I mentioned this before. You want to fetch the opposite land because that gives you the option to fetch basic if need be. Also, this is where I think a lot of newer players will screw up. Uh, a lot of newer players will be tempted to just play the Visionary or the Heritage into Wirewood. Yeah, so it's easier than that. That's one thing, right? Some people struggle with. I think given we've seen two basics here, I'm just gonna play it safe. I don't want to just randomly lose to back to basics. Oh, that is quite the card. I think what I want to do here is lead with the Heritage because I'll put my opponent in a spot where. Okay, so they forced that. Interesting. I guess I should have led with the Shepherd now, right? Now I feel silly because they did something I didn't expect. Yeah, see, this is what I get. I just overthought it. I should have led with the Shepherd and then played it the other way. Now I for these like weird plays like this. What do they pitch? It's a fairy. Interesting. Sure. I unless they're on some kind of weird combo like blue white. I mean, they could be right. I guess. Well, maybe not with ending, but like blue white show and tell. Probably still okay. I just feel really silly now for not protecting my line, so to speak. For our first mistake from our opponent. You don't do that even if you want the reclaimer off the board because you don't draw. Yeah, I was playing around removal, Jason, and then the rule of thumb is this deck actually doesn't not really care about uh, does not really care about what's the word I'm looking for? Spot removal in general. They really did. I did not expect them to force that. I mean, that one it makes more sense, right? But yeah, it's we got a little bit punished. Uh, okay, here's the correct attacks. If they happen to have a random gut shot or a submerge, you attack the elf into the planeswalker because you can bounce. For sure, he is. I saw that brought back deck is looks pretty nuts. Not gonna lie, like for sure. Again, did bounce the visionary here because I need the mana. A little bit concerned about Hull Breacher here. Not gonna lie, a little bit concerned. I think we do it this way. Oops, wrong one. If they have it, they have it. I screwed up. I should have forced and not forced. I should have played natural order, and then draw out the force. So they do have the combo. Oh my god, I'm a bit punished. Okay, so I should have named instant right because that draws out the force. But oops. Okay, ton of mistakes by me right there. I should have used the mana and get an arbor because that ramps me one, and then I get super punished here. They have the combo. Okay, thank goodness. I think they still could have it. I think they do. Man. Getting severely punished. Oh, man. That's the problem too, right? If you don't lead with removal, like we have these. Oops, I did the same mistake. Our opponent is playing quite aggressively, I guess is one way to say it, and we are getting punished. Man. Like blind forcing things, like especially cards that you should not force in general. Oh my god! And losing to this, it just feels really bad. Where your opponent is not playing optimally, but neither are we, admittedly. Ay. Yeah, people like it's because it's a novelty, right? It's like kind of new. Um, I feel like we should have won this matchup. If I just played better. It's like I don't expect people to make strange plays like forcing my Heritage Druid. We're not even dead yet. We can technically hit natural or off the top and still win. They should actually play their other Teferi um, unless they have the force in hand. Huh, that's interesting actually. Hmm. I don't think we do anything. Oh, I'm gonna attack with the Reclaimer actually. We have a combat trick that they may not be aware of. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and bounce this. Might as well bog, I guess, right now. We threw this game for sure, though. But I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, we have 3/4 tribal. All right, they forced that for no reason. I don't know why. Yeah, like again, our opponent is playing really sloppy, and we it just feels bad, right? They might just wheel here. That's the only thing I can think of why they would force there. Okay, they just drew it off the Narset. Ah, man. It was the mistake was just not leading with a shepherd there. I don't expect my opponent to force the heritage, and we just got like severely punished as a result. And like I guess don't take things for granted, right? That is the moral is the moral story of the day. I mean, to be honest, they would have lost, right? Like we just making, yeah. I think we have to thin. Our opponent may punt this game the way they've been playing though. So sure. Like we should have won this match, this game easily. I just did not expect what they did, which I don't think is correct, but it happened to work out for them there. I do think we're favored post board. Pre board, maybe not. But I think we should have won this game though. But we threw though. That's my fault. My fault. Our opponent is not playing this well at all, in my opinion. For those who follow football, I feel like Dennis Green right now, right? The late great Dennis Green. Uh, we let them off the hook. I mean, I think yeah. I think if we had just like led with a shepherd that one turn, this game is like completely different game. They just blindly forcing creatures that they should not, and ah man, these are the hard losses that are hard to swallow. Where like um you make an I don't even think that's like I guess you can call it a slight misplay, but your opponent should not be forcing a heritage druid, in my opinion. But I guess like it doesn't matter sometimes if you if you have the combo. All right, I think I can win both post board games. We don't have any margin for error now though, so we gotta bring our A game. No, no more no more giving. I guess our benefit of the doubt. They're gonna make or not make certain plays. That was, I'm not gonna lie, quite aggravating. Uh, Depends. It can be right, but it depends. I think it's more wrong than right. Yeah, so Wally said it right. So it can be right. I think it's more often wrong though. Take that for whatever. It's like context dependent, right? Like sometimes if you don't have removal, then sure, I can see an argument. You just want to slow down the elf player, especially if you're like Delver or something, where you need the tempo. But again, like I said, generally speaking, more wrong than right. They probably swords this. We unfortunately whiffed out the Once Upon a Time. Ooh, Visionary is quite the draw. So here I'm saving it because I'm flooding, and I want the verdant to represent a arbor. Ooh, okay. Oops, cancel. The good old turn 3 Progenitus. And then I think I pitch here. It's gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna pitch the Visionary. And the reason being is I can't get any value off that orb. Maybe Romario. I just think is a very very poor play what they did there, and we unfortunately could not capitalize because we did not lead with the correct elf. Thinking that they would not make that play too. I mean they got us for sure, but I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Uh, a question I will get asked a lot is, are you afraid of dress down into swords? The answer is no, because you often don't have the luxury of doing that. Because what are you gonna do? Like let the elf player assemble the board? Like that's not really a game-winning plan against elves. You can't really allow the elf player to develop their mana. Like the number one way an elf player loses is not being able to generate mana, whether that be mana screw, turn one Gristlebrand, turn one Tendrils of Agony, things like that. Or Plague Engineer, they can't generate their mana that way either. Like, as a general rule of thumb, like you want to generate your mana, and holding removal in hand is a recipe for disaster against elves. You're gonna die holding that removal in hand as they just bury you in card advantage. Like I've always said, I don't play discard not to fire it off turn one, especially when they've mulled already, right? Cage and Hull Breacher, interesting. I think I take ironically enough, the Cage here. I guess it's not that ironic given two green suns. Hold on one second. They played the Flooded Strand, sure. Actually, hold on, wait, hold on, hold on, hold on. Let me think. They're gonna swords here. I think we want to double. Yeah, let's do it this way. Double ramp. Sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this opponent is not playing very sharply. And you have Cage in opening hand, you do it turn one. Okay. And then we're gonna protect it. All right, later on, Ethan. Thanks for stopping by. For sure. Interesting. Okay, we can actually see their full. We have full information here, right? Sure. Oh God, they have removal too. Okay, they have. All right. Unfortunately, we lost the other arbor already. How do we get punished here? If we, I guess what we can do is we can hoof. It's not lethal, unfortunately. And then if they draw into Hull Bishop, we're gonna feel really bad. Um, Sorry, not Hull Bishop, into the combo here. Yeah, if they don't block, they go to 1. I think we take our chances, actually. Cancel. They're on a 1 turn clock, and we have 3 attackers, right? Like, I think they have to have snap into swords or something like that to stabilize. Yeah. Okay. So we recovered. Uh, Almost lost to what would have been an embarrassing loss. All right. Let's go. I'm gonna go ahead and hand out some mods right now, like I always do. So I know Dustin's been, uh, in our chats pretty often. So I think Dustin deserves it. I think. All right. Who else? We'll go and give. I think we'll go ahead and give Ethan. He's been pretty active in the Discord as well lately. So, all right. So, bonus rewards for sticking around, right, or coming by. I'm like Oprah, right? Mods for everyone. Everybody gets a mod, right? Or gets mod access, I should say. Uh, I do apologize. We did have to spend a 3rd game there. Maybe it's better. I guess more games to watch for the stream, but just completely through game 1. Our opponent not playing Cage is just beyond my comprehension as well. Or not shielding it with a Ponder. And then if they had a turn 1, you play a turn 1, obviously. It means you can add like cool what is it called? Uh, Things like this, I guess. Hold on. Commands. As a reminder, force of negation is unfair for everybody who's forgotten. I like to spread the gospel of my good buddy Jonathan Zhang, Chancellor of the Annex. Sure. We are playing against Reanimator, which looks like Show and Tell version 2. I'm just going to go ahead and yield. I'm probably dead, but we'll see. Actually, maybe not. 4 cards in hand. They pitch a Gristlebrand. They have 3 left, so unless it's like Entomb, Land, Exhume, then maybe. So I don't think it's this turn though. I mean, it could be Dark Ritual, Entomb, Exhume too, for what that's worth. If they don't have the combo, which they likely do, our game plan here is to run our thing into the Chancellor so we can Green Sun for Reclaimer next turn. That is the current line. Here, trying to weigh my deck thinning options probably matters. Probably matters. Oh, that's awesome to hear, Wally. I think I'm always happy to see graveyard players getting punished For sure, right? We play the ley lines this league. The adjustment was made, so to speak. All right, we're probably dead here, but that's okay. I am fully confident we can win games 2 and 3. Sure, we're gonna actually turn off yield, make them at least think about endurance. All right, they have it. For whatever it's worth, I think the graveyard matchups are completely fine if we have leyline. I know that's like maybe Captain Obvious, so to speak, but it's insane how much it swings the matchup. It swings it to probably pretty even, I think, because you still have endurances. To overwhelmingly favored. Again, probably dead here, but we'll see. And we are drawing blanks. Turn off yield until the next end step. Let me see some cool commands. Okay, so again, for anybody interested in my Patreon, here are the relevant links again. Follow me on Twitter for breaking news on Elves. Not really, but usually I'll post like I used to post all my 5.0s or a lot of them, but I think that can be a turnoff for some. I guess, chat, what do you think? Should I post my 5.0s more frequently now, or is what I'm doing currently with just posting them, sort of in the Discord channel and Patreon, better applicable? YouTube, and what am I missing? Patreon. I think that's all of them. Yeah, I used to post them more often, but I found like people kind of already know my list. So unless it's like a big deal now, like a PTQ or something, I'll typically post my list maybe then. I still do post on the. I give one of the benefits of being on my subscribing to my Patreon is I will give you know updates every few days on the Patreon channel on Discord on what I'm testing, how it's working out, what I expect the metagame to be. Um, One thing I want to point out is that was pretty cool was literally the night before the PTQ. I said I have a feeling that Reanimator is going to be largely very well represented, and yeah, on Twitter. Is it worth it to post 5.0s? My guess is probably not. Okay, so you like it personally. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Maybe I'll do it more often. I used to post it more often, but not so much these days. Only because what's it called it too? I think some people don't like seeing it, but then again, they could just mute it, I guess. All right, we're just dead. But yeah, I do post it on my Patreon when I like a certain list or trying a certain thing though. So that would be one benefit of Patreon. Yes, and occasionally I post it on the general chat in on Discord, especially if it's like something I think a lot that the general public should probably know. If obviously if I'm testing, the Patreon gets first dibs on that because of the subscription, right? So here we go, boarding our 14 cards, right, for this matchup. Again, you can lose this matchup even with Leyline. It's very difficult though. It's just strategically a nightmare for the opponent. All right, that is pretty reasonable, so I'm gonna keep. I didn't slow roll the ley line there because I've run into this player a few times, so I want to change it up in case they suspect I'm gonna slow roll a ley line. Yeah, I don't. The one thing is you don't want to be a little too predictable with elves. I will say that. I don't like people figuring out my play patterns. So I will change things up. Like for a good example is the first league I played Mind Trap. I think the card is horrendous. That said, I just ran it because sometimes you need a mind break trap people to remind them it's a possibility. So let's see what they do here. Maybe they force a vigor in response. Entomb, Animate Dead. I don't think we actually care about a lot of these cards. I think we take the Entomb. No, we take the Seize, I think. Because we want to protect the Endurance too, right? I don't think it really mattered, right? Like we're gonna take anything that answers the ley line, and then here I think it makes sense to take the C's because the endurance is a second layer of defense. Sometimes it feels really unfair, right? I open up with leyline plus endurance. This is like a nightmare, right, for our opponent. As if the leyline wasn't already bad enough. I think. Yeah, I think I just play everything. We potentially have lethal next turn, but we'll see. A land off the top is lethal. We have multiple ways of protection, right? Um, as a general rule of thumb, I think Thoughtseize on one is mostly correct. The exception to that rule for me is the mirror, where you're not afraid of dying on turn one, right? Um, but given that we have the ley line, that's like a reasonable take, though. Pun not intended. All right. Here we have the natural order, but it's not lethal. I think. Hold on. That's 6 plus. Let me think. 6 plus 8. That's 14. Yeah. So it's not lethal. I'm gonna go ahead and just attack with the one. We have the bog activation up, so game will be decided next turn. All right, now it's game. It's like a Stoneforge Mystic, right? Every turn you untap with it is like even more devastating. Like the play patterns are like this is actually why I think I enjoy the Reclaimer play pattern because it's a lot similar to the Stoneforge Mystic play pattern, which is a card that I've enjoyed playing in like Death and Taxes, and then to a smaller extent when I've dabbled in Stoneblade. It pains me that well, I guess that's not true. I was gonna say it pains me that Stoneforge Mystic no longer sees play, but it does see play in D&D, which is, in my opinion, uh, I guess it depends on people's definitions of like tier one versus tier two. I think it's in a winner's metagame. Whether that you put it tier one or tier two is like up to your discretion, but I do think it is a real deck. So we have the turn one C's. I think it's like pretty reasonable. It could be better. Obviously, we have Leyline, but they made more to Leyline now. I mean, sorry, anti Leyline, given what we showed. especially since we kept quickly game two as well, right? Like we kept quickly game two, which and then we had the ley line. They may think we kept quickly again here, given that we had the ley line again. It really depends what you think your opponent is gonna what like meta, so to speak, your opponent is on. It would have been backbreaking if our opponent had Chancellor there, though. All right. We lead with C's, and then we see what they do. Sure. Archon of Cruelty, not Grizzlebrand. Interesting. We take the Exhume. They kept removal, which makes me happy. All right, we know their hand. Full information, right? So if we draw a land, we're getting Reclaimer. Okay, easy mode. And then here we're ramping. I think the game is, barring a faithless looting here, could be over, right? Their out here is looting into reanimate. My mistake. I guess that was another out. Um. All right. So we need the mana. We can actually deal with this. With our Green Sun. So I think I'll pitch the Reclaimer, and then pitch the Shepherd. So yeah, for some reason I thought for they didn't have a creature in the yard already, but they had an Archon. I think as long as we okay, they see what? Yeah, so they took our Green Sun. Now it's kind of problematic. We have Trophy as an out. That's also a potential out. Huh. Unfortunate here, for sure. Okay, actually, I have the line. I almost spaced out. We have the line here. All right. We get the grist and then we down tick. I don't know why I like spaced out for a second. We lose to another top deck reanimation spell though, but we just have to dodge, right? Like they, I mean, they top deck once already, so it'd be kind of heartbreaking, but we'll see. If we fade one turn, we can deal with the second Archon again, right? All right. Although this is or Planeswalker, so we would lose, I guess. We would have to fade. Yeah, we have to fade it for two turns, um, unless we what is the word I'm looking for? I think here we probably take the Serenity, so they can't keep anything. If they animate dead, sorry, if they faithless looting, and then we just pass. We gotta fade one more turn, and we're probably in the clear. This game actually has been pretty nuts, admittedly. All right, so probably in the clear now. Plus again. The mistake our opponent made really was getting the Archon of Cruelty. I think Gristlebrand probably wins, right? Ooh, that is a hell of a draw. I think the only thing we're afraid of now is show and tell. Actually, we beat show and tell because of the grist. So I think it's literally a lock now. Thanks, Wally. We got a little bit lucky too. We needed to hit a land, which we did. This could be a flashback looting, but I don't think we care. It should be game from here. We're not just going through the motions. It was a lot closer than we would like. We actually needed a top deck that land. But as I like to say, one good top deck deserves another. So they top decked the reanimation spell right before we are gonna get the reclaimer online, for whatever that's worth. Sure, I'm gonna do this in response. So our opponent tilting, right? Draw like 5, 6 cards afterwards. But we'll take it. So one thing that I started using lately, I'll show I guess chat is uh, this Daragun, so to speak. And when an opponent is in the tank, so to speak, I like to use it now, especially against Doomsday players who take forever. I had one Doomsday player the other day. Nice, yeah, yeah. I think they're really helpful, like especially since my neck always hurts. But I had one Doomsday player, and Romario. This is like nothing personal against Doomsday. It would happen to be a Doomsday player, and Romario is a Doomsday player and my friend. Uh, and so is Wally actually. Wally's also a Doomsday player, but this Doomsday player was at 3 minutes left when they lost to me, and I was at 19. It's games like that that are just infuriating. They took 10 minutes resolving a Doomsday, and I just nearly conceded just because I didn't want to wait. Like I don't think I don't think it should take 10 minutes to resolve a Doomsday. But yeah, this is what I use. I've found it releases my strength. It's possible, Romario. Man, it just and I try to be patient too, because that's the number one thing on my New Year's resolution. And I just almost turned off my computer. I don't even care if I took a loss, right? Because I just did not want to wait. I ended up playing it out, and I won with them at 3 minutes. I'm at 19, but I just don't think that's reasonable. Like, if this was a tournament, any other player would have caught a judge already. All right, we're playing against Tony's Capone. They just recently won the challenge. Uh, I think we're a heavy underdog, especially game one. I'm gonna take my chances that we with the collector move here and hope we top deck a land. The problem is they know what we usually play, so they're just gonna mulligan aggressively. Like this is the problem when you play a non-force of will deck, right? Like just mulligan to four, things like that. Just trying to find the combo, right? What do you mean by league breaker, Wally? Are you talking about like breaking your 5-0s or something else? Or making you tilt? Maybe both, right? My guess is they're mulling to Leyline plus LED. Sorry, not Leyline. Echo plus LED. Although if they had it, they would have done it here. Oh, sure, that's what you mean. That's fair. Uh, I have a person like that will break up my 5-0s the most. For those of you who pay attention to my leagues, there is one person that I always lose to. And they're on Belcher. That's a big hint. Any idea who that is? It's gotta be Echo, right? Oh, man. All right. Well, we tried. All right. Well, at least we got it back. That's the bright side. Why they didn't go off the previous turn? Maybe they didn't have the source. Yeah, I think they were missing the red source probably. But yeah, there is one Belcher player that is notorious for. I have lost more 5-0s to Belcher, and is in particular one opponent, than any other archetype. Believe it or not. Uh, so that is a major hint. Maybe I'll reveal that later. I just I just don't enjoy playing. Well, at least it's quick. That's one good thing about it. I'll take my loss. Sometimes I'll win, but it's like usually loss, and just move on with my day, right? Belcher, in my opinion, is probably the worst deck for elves. I just don't. I usually just list lands because Belcher is not super popular. But if you want to beat elves, that's probably like one way to do it, right? Especially the non echo versions because you're not weak to leyline. The cha-ching sound? Okay, sure, enough. Talking about Tony or what? Yeah, this is a good matchup for Tony. I think my record against Tony is definitely below 50%. I don't know what it is. If I were to guess, probably like 30 at best. I think the sideboard does help. It's just the problem is game one is pretty much an auto loss. And the sideboard is not like Doomsday where you just bring in a million cards, right? And you can actually beat. You're still pretty heavily underdog. The closer a deck is on the Belcher scale, the worse the matchup. And this is like probably as close as you can get to Belcher. I think on the Belcher scale, it's like Belcher, Ruby Storm, TES, and then Ant, I guess. Ant being the slowest and uh, patient, I guess, probably the best word I can use of the decks. What in the world is going on? Oh my god, we're gonna get belched? Jesus. Oh, maybe not. Huh. I think we might steal this game. Maybe not. Maybe not. What do they see? Okay, so our line is pretty straightforward, right? We're just going to play a bunch of elves into Collector Oof. No need to mess around. Alright, so that's pretty good. My wife is staring from the side here, making me uneasy. She's, you know, come down for her midnight snack. I guess it's not even midnight yet, by the way, but it's 10:30 here on the West Coast. We might have stolen this game because they, for some reason, have a Belcher in their list. Well, I guess not for some reason. This is like a new brew, right? Yeah, I think we have just stolen this game. I'm not gonna mess around. I'm just gonna go ahead and actually hold on. I'm gonna Reclaimer for. We're gonna do this in style, right? We're gonna Reclaimer for Arbor and then Bash for a whole bunch. One of my favorite plays, actually, the old Reclaimer for an Arbor on the natural overkill turn. Doesn't matter here, but sometimes it's the difference between lethal and not. Alright, so we have successfully stolen game one. I think given that they're on the Belcher plan, Assassin's Trophy is a lot more appealing here. It can wasteland them or hit a Burgie or the 5-drop. I forgot what it's called, but all relevant, I guess. Bog not so great. I think Grist not so great. Given that we actually hold on 1 second, we need to board out 7 cards. I guess we can board out like most of the symbiote package. This is probably it's that or board down on the glimpses, right? Actually, the glimpses are quite awkward. I'm gonna do it the other way, and bring back some of the other cards. Yeah, I think this is better, given that we just want to commit to the board and then huff our opponent or Archon our opponent. Like, Glimpse doesn't play particularly well with. I think we have. Ugh, the hoof is kind of nasty, but I think we have to keep this hand. It helps that we're up a game too. I always feign like I have Mindbreak Trap. Okay, not gonna work here. Sure. It, for those who know, do they always go off turn 1? Like, I always feel like they have it. Maybe that's just my imagination. Like, an interesting question came up the other day when I was playing against Tony. Do you keep a hand with Collector Oof turn go on the play? Like, is that fast enough, or do you have to get turn 1 seized? And conversely, do you keep hands that on the draw? Do you keep hands on the draw that don't have leyline? So the no is they don't have it, always have it. Maybe because they know they're playing against Elves, they always seem to have it against me. But okay, so it's good to know, right? That means I can, in theory, keep a collector on the play or discard on the draw. Excuse me, I'm something in my eye. Problem with glasses sometimes if they're dirty. I will pause a little bit just to, feign the the Mindbreak Trap. So here they have the Belcher plan. And I don't know, 2 cards in hand. We're gonna Collector Oof here, which is nice. The Assassin's Trophy actually quite nice too, to be honest. But not as nice as the Collector Oof. Yeah, I have no idea what I mean, they're obviously working on a new deck, right? I mean, I know from what I've seen, Tony likes to brew a lot, so I'm not. It's not like completely surprising, I guess, but definitely not what I expected, right? Like, so there's the Tinder Wall, Ride of Flame, and probably into Burgie, I'd imagine. There's a chance they go for Belcher too if they have removal. For whatever that's worth. So they can play the Mox here and actually gain a mana, and then maybe play the Belcher. Yeah, see. And then hope to either top deck removal or wait a turn to play the removal spell. But we do have lethal, potentially. Yeah, now we have lethal. Pretty cool to be able to beat this. I definitely don't think we're favored, but we did 2-0. Honestly, these kind of matchups, better lucky than good, right? I can't really take credit. They had the turn one wheel both times. We just happened to. Well, actually, we didn't even do anything, to be honest. They just whiffed, right? Like, our hand wasn't. We had the turn two collector Oof, game two, but game one, honestly, wasn't that great. For us, at least. If I remember correctly. Maybe I'm not. But I don't know how often this version will whiff. And again, it looks pretty experimental so far. Here we are playing against Matthew Book, so we'll see how it goes. We do have one dead card, unfortunately, in our hand. I think I saw that. Alright, so it looks like they're on some Delver variant. Yes, definitely powerful for sure. I think here I want to grow my Reclaimers. Or Reclaimer singular. If they kill this here with removal, then our Reclaimer is live, right? As a 3/4. One of the disadvantages of when your opponent knows you're on Elves that is not combo related. Obviously, when you're playing against combo, your opponent's going to try to turn one you every time. Yeah, for sure, Mike. I agree. I think you're right. I think we had the oof turn game one as well, so pretty lucky to be honest. What was I gonna say? But against like these Delver decks, like if they know I'm on Elves, they're not gonna keep Ragavan hand, for instance. So that is one downside, so to speak. I think I'm gonna play around the days here. Like this is like too important to get dazed. Murktide. I think yes, this is smarter. You leave with the wasteland, so I can't get Arbor. Yeah, heads up play by Matt. We need a creature pretty badly here. That counts, I guess. That counts. Did not. Interesting. I think we minus here. We could have waited a turn. But I think things get a lot worse if we do. Because the wasteland is like real awkward for us, right? We can like wait a turn, glimpse, and then draw a card off the grist, but I think it's okay, like what we did there. They're gonna waste us here. Hard to say what's gonna happen here. I think we're a little bit behind, and part of that is like I said, um, opponents will know not to keep Ragavan hands against us. So that's a real downside, honestly. I think here we fire off the glimpse now. What did they? I should have been paying attention. I didn't reveal. I didn't see what they exile off the iteration. But probably gonna lose here. Like we need a creature. We have a mulligan on the hoof, right? It's just really awkward. I wanted to fire off the glimpse, and then we drew the grist, which is not the worst. It's just like a little awkward there because I don't really want to pitch my reclaimer. We could have taken like 7 damage is a lot to take for whatever that's worth. What I really wanted to happen was the grist to get forced or dazed. Alright. Pretty good actually. Our opponent probably has force by now. They're like half through their deck, right? They haven't used any yet. That's actually quite good, but I suspect it's going to get forced here. We're going to do it on their turn to... Actually, this actually helps us, to be honest. I think here we're supposed to do this now. Oh, brutal. Okay. That's just game, actually. Another Murktide? I think it's another Murktide that leaves the DRCs able to attack too. Uh, if I could do it again, I think I think I would have potentially waited a turn. Leaving the wasteland up was real awkward for me. But maybe you wait a turn because I did not love pitching the reclaimer there. I think one thing we could have done differently was we could have used. Well, actually, it was a little awkward, right? Because the hoof is also in the hand, so natural order is not even lethal. So that's one issue about. That is one issue of what's it called? Of waiting a turn, right? And we never really got to use the. Did we get forced the glimpse? What happened to the glimpse? Oh, we only drew one card off of it. Ugh. All right, so pretty bad overall. All right, we're gonna board now. We'll see. The nice thing is I've been wanting more Delver practice to see how this matchup is. Um, and I guess we'll get it here, right? Like with my boarding plan against theirs. All right, this is pretty good. So, yeah, I do like that we're getting some practice against Delver here because I think we take the Corridor definitely. I did want to see how my current sideboard plan, if we need more help or not in the matchup. I know the Elf win rate has been kind of atrocious against Delver lately, so take that for whatever grain of salt. I think here we want to ramp. I'm going to go ahead and attack with the Heritage first. Like, we're going to... We worry about payoff second. Developing mana is number one in this matchup. I sense... My spider senses are tingling. I think there's a sweeper coming. Okay, that's okay with me. It scared me that they did not remove anything their turn. I think we're okay with this. We're gonna fire it off now. Force out a... Ooh, I really wanted to see a... what does it call it? I really wanted to see another elf there. There's an argument to be made to pitch endurance here, but I think we're gonna try to extract full value. Like the Once Upon a Time is actually quite good too, for whatever that's worth. I'm kind of curious what they're keeping. It could be a Staticaster here. I think I'm okay with that. Sure. I'm not gonna bounce here because we want. Sure. We want to be able to take the Narset off the board. Let's see. We're gonna do this. It'd be nice if we drew an elf here. If we whiff here, I don't think we can afford to whiff here and not cast the Gris. This is my draw force, yeah, or game or concession. So I think Matt probably kept more of a reactive hand, um, which favors us for sure. So on to game three. This one might be hard because we're on the draw now. Um, and the odds are that they may see the sweeper game three because we didn't see it here game two, right? I think we keep. It's pretty solid. This is probably one of the more fun matches I think I'm playing against right now. I like playing against good players, especially because it kind of gives a good barometer where the deck's at, right? Here, I think we. Oh, Reclaimer's quite good, but I think we just want to hit land drops. The way you lose in this matchup is you don't hit land drops, and with Cradle as our only other land, I don't want to just lose to Wasteland here. That Glimpse is a little awkward though, if they have a creature here. I think they are probably thinking about using the Glimpse for value. Because it's actually one of the better draws they can get. It's like better than like. Alright, so they didn't have a creature. I think, oh, that tells me they're missing land drops, right? Or they want to just see the top card and be able to fetch the rest away. That's the other line. Sure, DRC is quite good in this matchup. I think we want to be mana efficient here, and I think what that means is we're just gonna run a Visionary into a Daze. What this does is, if they don't force this or daze this, Endurance is free to land as well. And here we will block. Like, we have 6 cards in hand. Alright, let's see what happens here. They put 1 card on the top. Sure. Oh, that is actually a good draw. I think given our hand, what's gonna happen is if we glimpse here, we can only draw potentially 2 cards and have to pitch. I actually like the idea of just main phasing Endurance here. Or sorry, upkeep Endurance. And then force our opponent to use their mana awkwardly. Alright, so there's the Force of Will. Maybe that's a Murktide coming in. Ugh. Kinda wanted to see that. Alright, that's a hell of a draw. Whiffing there hurts though. I think Reclaimer needs to be a 3/4, so I'm gonna play the fetch out. I wonder what's on top that they kept. Sure. They kept on top, which is a little bit scary. Might be the Murktide here. Yeah. Probably fetch here. Hmm. Oh, these Assassin Trophy would be really nice. Hmm. Interesting. If I tap out right now, that means they potentially could just attack. Um, Maybe that's the angle. So they get extra. They force me to block essentially. I'm gonna let that resolve. Oh, that's brutal actually. Because now they can attack with everybody. Yeah. All right. I guess maybe we need to shore up this matchup. Not being able to get the endurance there through there was a little awkward. I think I'm trying to think. I think the turn that we could have done something differently. Oops. All right, how do I go back? I can't. All right, I'm gonna bring back it through here. Oh, actually, here's the game. Um, I definitely think we could have played one turn differently. And possible we should have played it safe. What I mean by that is, all right. Let's take a look. You think so, Romario? Like at Eternal Weekend, it worked really well for whatever that's worth. All right, so we ran the Visionary into the days. They gut shot it, which is fine. They attacked both here. They could have Murktide earlier if they wanted, but they did not. I think they kept on top based off that. I could be wrong. Yeah, that's possible for sure. This is the turn I'm talking about here. Like we can go Glimpse, Shepherd, and then actually that was I think I screwed up. I think the line here is you glimpse if it resolves, You shepherd, you draw one card. And I actually forgot, like, you can actually play the Cradle, Endurance on the stack, and actually get 2 mana and maybe draw more. So I think that's actually the misplay here. Um, and I didn't think about it with the Cradle, right? Um, Also, if Glimpse resolves here, sorry, if they force the Glimpse, it's just really awkward too, right? Like if we Endurance here, yeah, it's just awkward, right? They either force the Glimpse or force the Endurance. I think given that we have 6 cards in hand or 7 cards in hand here, probably want to do the latter and make sure that the Endurance resolves. Although I think they got the Murktide this turn, right? I mean the following turn. Let's take a look. Oh no, they didn't. Yeah, so that was a major screw up by us. What did they pitch? They pitched the Brainstorm. That probably cost us the game, to be honest, because I think if we do it the other way, the Shepherd comes down. So they forced the Glimpse. We play the Shepherd. We played the Misty Rainforest instead. And then yeah, and then we can just hard cast the Endurance, and the game looks completely different actually. Uh, so the logic is: do you play around Force there, or do you want to play around what is it called? You play around Force, or do you want to play around the Murktide? Because if they have Murktide, you're gonna feel kind of silly, right, for not Endurancing. But I guess you would Endurance anyways if the Glimpse resolves. So I think we just punted the matchup. Right? Because yeah, the Endurance resolves, and I think you want them to. You rather them force the Glimpse of Nature than the Endurance. So we kind of punted, but it's okay. I think that's how you learn, right? You watch these replays, you see what you did wrong, and I think the major thing was I was concerned about not having the mana, but I could have done the trick where you evoke the Endurance and then put and gain mana off the guy's Cradle because we're probably guaranteed to draw multiple cards after that, given the mana ramp. So good to know. Okay, I guess that is I guess sort of high note or low note, whatever you want to call it, of ending it. Probably should have won. I think that game three. I think it plays out kind of differently if we play out the Glimpse. That said, let's see who should we raid at the moment. I think rating. Okay, Tunneling Cat has 89 viewers. Playing modern, so maybe that's the call right there. All right, thanks everyone for coming by. I do think Romario, you have a valid point. I do think if we played it correctly, we probably win though, for whatever that's worth. I just didn't think it through at the time.